Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining me again on this episode of Lynch with a Leader. It is an honor to have you.
It's always good to be with you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
You're special. So you were on episode 123 that we released. It had been recorded way earlier in January of 2021. This episode releases in January of 2024. What's new about your life and what's new about leadership since the last time you and I spent a little bit of time together via Zoom?
Okay, did you say January of 21?
Yes.
Yeehaw, buddy.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeehaw. Man, I could take you deep down some rabbit holes. It's just such a long period of time. When I think about what's new in life, the best way to answer that is in 2021. I would say that as a man, I experienced some of the worst of what the world can bring, as I had to deal with young adult suicide that was too close to home. Not in our family, but one of the gals living in our home, it was her brother, and she was we moved her in. You might remember my wife and I have 4 kids of our own, but we've always had extra kids living with us. And we moved one young gal in. She was living with us when I did my last interview with you, the last podcast. But a month after that aired, her 15-year-old ended his life. And I was one of the first ones on the scene, and we moved their family in, and I officiated the memorial, about 850 in the church. And this was, during COVID times when they were capping 400 in a room. But it was like, no, you're not turning away a lot of kids. And it was burly. And then that opened up this whole floodgate of kids that knew that I had a passion to help, and parents. And so 2021, there was that. 2021 was a year of great gift, received another granddaughter. So that was there. And then 2021, lost one of my best friends who had lived in our home for about a year as he was fighting cancer. And through all of it, looking at probably what we all started going through March of 2020 through October of 2021, I ran out of steam. It just got too much. And in your role, Mike, I know you've seen it before, when you're just faced with such heartbreak over and over and over again, and turmoil, no matter how strong you think you are, it'll bite you. And in 2020, it did. I'm a guy who wakes up with pep in my step every day. I live in Oregon, and it's sunny in my world all the time, even when it's pouring rain. I don't know. God's wired me that way. But in 2021, I needed to take some time to myself. So I took a little sabbatical up in the Black Forest of Germany in a cottage for about a week, quarantining before doing some executive work, and I had a little wrestling match with God on this question that nobody's ever asked, which is, well, why do bad things happen to good people? I'm sick of it, man. Why? I don't like it. So, in 2021, Mike, what's happened since that period of time? I started looking at life as if I were looking through a kaleidoscope. And, you see all the bright and beautiful colors. And in 2021, all I saw was dark. And it was good for me. It gave me a lot of empathy for people that I really love and care for, that don't have as easy of a time twisting it to see the bright colors, which are all the highlights. Because I got to a point where I didn't want to twist it. I was just very comfortable looking at the dark colors. So that's the roughest of parts, but also, beautiful. There is something that is to be said for being the house of grieving. More grandbabies since then. Lots of goodness. 35 years of marriage to my sweet bride. We now spend a good chunk of our time over in warm water and good surf, warm climate where we've always vacationed. We spend a lot of our residence time now over in Maui. So, with that, we made an investment there a little while ago, and even they're really good. But again, the Lord let us know that there's no such thing as heaven until you get to heaven.
That's right.
We had a car stolen the same day, our house flooded. We got it all put back together, everything, months and months of getting it all put back together. And the next week, we had a little fire in Maui that some people have heard about.
Yep.
And we lost 20 homes in our neighborhood, came 200 yards from our backyard. We had to
Wow.
evacuate, and we've been in that kind of crisis mode. So now I've been working with a group of leaders over there, trying to help them to navigate their way forward. So everything works out for a reason. There's a lot of richness. You know, my life is it's full. It's really full. I'm a grandpa, and I'm a hubby and a daddy, and I get to do what I get to do. So that's on the personal side. Set Path, which we talked about, is the young adult not-for-profit that we started in the midst of COVID, and that's to transfer purpose, belief, and direction in the lives of America's young adults through life planning and mentorship. And we were just getting that going when I was with you last. And today our app is now in the App Store, our learning management systems in beta testing, and we're piloting it. So setpath.org, it's in testing mode, and we got organizations and young adults that are going through it. And I'm hopeful that that's going to be a real difference maker in the lives of young adults here in the States. And then we'll see if we chase Living Forward, that book, and to the 20 plus languages that thing's in. Building champions on the executive coaching side. We continue to work with a lot of leaders, which probably brings me to part 2 of your question. What am I seeing in leadership today versus the last time? And I would just say that I would answer that a few ways. You know, a lot of leaders are tired. There's been just so much change in a short period of time, a lot of difficulty, and now we're faced again with economic uncertainty and political uncertainty, and depending upon the size of the company you run. I've got clients that run global businesses that are, you know, shutting down. A year ago, they had to shut down functions in Russia, and now they're having to look at things going on in the Middle East, and their worlds are incredibly complex. I just don't know how they have the processing power to do such things, but it's complicated. And I think the best of the best leaders understand that their leadership job, yes, it's incredibly meaningful, but they understand it is something that they do. It's not who they are. And those that have really figured that out are looking at more like a very complicated and meaningful puzzle that they need to play during the day. And then they need to put the box on it and put it away at night so they can be present with their significant others and get some rest, and then get a workout in and do what they need to do to make their heads and hearts right, and then go back at it and play the game with all passion and courage and giftedness and a lot of humility and a lot of help. So a really long answer to an opening question. Hopefully that helps.
Well, that really helps a lot. I'd love to ask you this. What we say this phrase on this call all the time: God never wastes our time, and He never wastes our experiences. You are the leader behind the leaders, right? I mean, people know more the people you work with than maybe they know you.
Definitely.
How has this season that you've walked through made you better at helping those leaders who are walking through their complicated times?
Yeah, I would probably rephrase even how you classify me as a leader of leaders. I'm not qualified. I think I am a coach and a mentor.
Good.
In some situations. But what it has done for me, you know, I've been at this now for almost 3 decades, which is crazy. But I've gone through this progression from when I started an executive coaching company when I was 31. Back then in the 90s, there was no such industry. And I may have mentioned this when we were together last, but back then I thought it would work, you know, thought, prayed, hoped. Today, you know, it's a $10 billion industry all around the globe with tens and tens of thousands of competitors, or I will say colleagues out there trying to move the needle like me. But how it's changed me and how have I grown? And I think that was your question. I know that with absolute assuredness, this worn out chair, hours and hours in conversations, whether via Zoom or whether I'm flying around or they're flying here, I know that when I walk in the room, I'm going to be used. And that's not that's not cocky or arrogant or anything. I've got 30 years of being used. And I walk out of these meetings, I'm like, I don't have the equipment to do what just happened. I mean, there was something divine that just took place. So, my real value is having a system to help me to remember all key components of a conversation. It has to do with having the skill to ask the questions that will stop a leader and cause them to really think. It has to do with knowing when the leader needs encouragement and to be buoyed up versus when the leader needs to potentially see that there's 3 more doors to the right. They just don't see it. I mean, this is an escape room. There are 3 extra doors, and let's work to find those doors together. So they need that collaborative thinker. So often I see myself as just another head sitting on their shoulder, and they're looking, as far this way as they can, and I've got everything else covered. And I'm just saying, hey, wait, what do you see over here? Yeah, I know you can't turn your head, but let me tell you what I see. I see this over here. Process that. Give me a reaction to that. So it's been an amazing gift. I was with Mike last week. I was with from Wednesday night's dinner, Thursday morning's breakfast, Thursday all day, Thursday afternoon dinner, Friday 2 breakfasts, then 2 afternoon meetings, and then dinner with another business associate, friends, couple, etc. until Saturday when I flew home. I was with like 8 different leaders, and just the richness of every one of those. I was just talking to my executive assistant. She's like, "Wow, you had a week, man. That had to be intense and burly." And I was like, "Gosh, it was great. Like, give me weeks like that. Give me weeks where I get to have those types of conversations with the people that can influence the tens of thousands like they can. Come on. It's phenomenal." So,
It's so funny because this podcast is about spiritual leadership and the role that your faith walk and the Holy Spirit plays in that is probably huge, isn't it?
massive.
Yeah.
Massive. I mean, yeah, it's just massive. Greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. And I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And, all of the passages with trusting in him, and he'll make your path straight, or, he'll lead you down paths of righteousness. I'm on a journey, Mike. I'm on a journey, and he is something. I led 33 leaders through a couple-day retreat a few weeks ago in San Diego, and I walked them through an exercise where I wanted them to look back. All of them were roughly our age. So you've got a lot of them in business who don't need to work anymore. So they're trying to figure out, well, when do I stop working? Do I stop working? I don't have the passion I used to. I'm confused. That type of a transition's a big one. And whether you do it or not is big. And so I walked them through a timeline, looking at their life from birth to now, decade by decade. And I had 33 of them identify all the highs and the lows and look for the themes, and to see where there were common threads that have enabled them to have the platform that they have today, and to really do a deep dive on that. And then I asked them, okay, what would need to be true in order for the decade ahead to be the best that you've ever had? Like the best that you've ever had. What would need to be true? And to use that platform for real goodness. And just being able to have those conversations and journey with them, I just know the divine shows up, and people see things that without that guidance, without that human but divinely inspired human guidance to walk with them, they wouldn't go there. They would just walk on their own down the same paths.
It's such a great picture of your job is not to tell them what to do. Your job is to help them process, help them gain. Think of somebody listening in on this call that they're on the front end of life. They're in their 30s, they're in their 40s, they're in those big earning years, they're in those big work years. I heard you say this in a podcast. I've read you write it where you've written it, where you say the 5 to 9 p.m. is as important, more important, way more important than the 9 to 5. Why is it so important for a leader, man, woman, to get this plan in place that helps them dictate out how they're going to live out this journey?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would state is a conviction of mine, and I just believe it with all of my heart. And everything I talk about has to do with a time frame of marathon and not sprint. So I'm looking at a career. I'm not looking at a job. I'm not looking at a season. I'm talking about who you will be as an appointed, uh, equipped leader or servant who has earned a place as a result of God's favor. Yes, you've worked hard. Yes, you've got intellect. Yes, you are skilled, but the Lord lets you. I mean,
That's right.
face it, he has the ability to cause you not to wake up today. So things can change. Why do I believe that the 5 to 9 is as important or maybe even more important than the 9 to 5? And it has to do with an absolute belief that better humans make for better leaders. I have an absolute belief that the human journey is not just about one's career. If you look at what creates richness, fulfillment, impact, there's just more dimensions to our journey than just our career. Our career is big. We do spend the majority of our waking hours here, but it's not the only thing. And if we mess up the 5 to 9, then what we do is we put at risk our efficacy, our effectiveness, our energy, our passion, our ability to connect in the 9 to 5. We're just not as good. Said another way, self-leadership always precedes team leadership, and team leadership always precedes organizational leadership. Team leadership or team effectiveness, how the team does, that team of 5, 6, 8, 12 that you serve as the leader, well, they're taking cues off of you and your well-being, as well as your intellect, your clarity of communication, your strategic thinking, all of that. And they're making these conscious and subconscious decisions about you based upon how you lead yourself. And the better you are in all areas, the more attentive you are to all areas of your life, it puts you in a place to have maximum energy and be the most effective with that team. So now your team goes to an effective team. Then that team of 5, 6, 8, or 12 goes out and they're responsible for influencing the entire organization. And, I spend time with teams of 8 that are responsible for 200,000. All right. How you lead yourself impacts how you lead culture. 200,000, we're talking about counties. We're talking about cities put together. You're talking about massive numbers. And let's bring it all the way back. You lead a team of 3, and in your organization, you have 10. Well, those 10 deal with 50 customers in a week, and those 50 customers have some sort of an experience with you, and that either makes them better or worse. They experience light or dark. They experience joy and gratitude or frustration and angst or worry. How you leading yourself matters.
That makes total sense. I think everybody gets it. Why do people struggle to do it? Why is it almost inherent? And it really was in our generation too, down to this generation, that we think, yes, that's right, but I've got to go do this. What's pushback you get as you coach and as you mentor and as you work? What's pushback you get on that?
I think the most common answer is I'll get to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You have this false, you're living a false guarantee. There's no guarantee of tomorrow. There's just no guarantee. And everyone has their busy season. If I could just get through this season, once we get the business to this mark, then I'll start to focus on her, on him, on them, on this, on that. Then I will. But right now, man, I mean, this is burn it time. We gotta crank. And it's not that. It's once I get enough money for retirement, once I get that taken care of, then I'll start to. It's just another 5 years on the plan, then I'll start to. Or it's when I just get the last kid through school, or once we launch this strategic bet, then I'm going to be able to get to it. It's wrong. And I've heard it over and over and over again. And Mike, you've heard me say it numerous times. It's the verse that people need to own. And when Moses cried out and said, "Hey, teach me, Lord, to number my days so that I may gain a heart of wisdom," what he was saying, Moses is going, my head is so easily deceived. I think I can get to it tomorrow, but I need to number my days in my heart. I need to believe in my heart that I only have so many rotations around this thing. And I need to live with that conviction so I can make better decisions and be a better steward. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as the fools, but as the wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. There's no guarantee of tomorrow. So I think that's one answer. And the second answer is that we have great intentions, but we just, as you know, we drift. It's like, yeah, I didn't plan to get here, but just slow erosion over time. I got stuck in the current, and everyone else was doing it, and they all started working late, and they all started going there after dinner, and they all went down for a drink after the meeting, and and it just kind of happens. It's the way we do it here. Okay. Okay, get stuck in the drift, that cultural current. You're going to wind up a casualty. I've seen it over and over again.
In hearing you talk about the drift, so my idea of the drift is being down on the Gulf Coast and getting on a raft and sitting in front of the hotel and drifting down. Your idea of the drift as a surfer is very different than my lazy fanny rear end laying on a float.
But you're on the water. That's
Good. You understand drift totally differently. Talk about drift from the eyes of a surfer and what that means the way you've experienced it before.
So I've been surfing since I was a young teenager, and I surf Hawaii every winter. And now I don't go out in the biggest of days. Like last week, it was 70 feet. That is not Daniel. I'll go out, 2 times, 3 times bigger than me, but it's big. And, a year ago in November, one of those at a very beautiful spot that I've been surfing since I was 18, the lip came over, smacked me in the back of the neck and did neck damage for a year. So I was out of the water until just about a month ago trying to rehab some damage. There's a lot of power to it. That disclaimer is to just let people know a lot of time in the ocean, a lot of time out in the middle of the ocean, out in the waters of Fiji or South Africa, where currents just move. If you take your eyes off of what's happening, you will have a much different surfing experience. So you will see the best of surfers. They'll sit on the beach and they'll study. They know the spot. If it's their first time there, they'll wait. The first time I worked with some coaches, this is some of your listeners are going to go, gosh, dude, you live a ridiculous life. And yes, I do. Don't understand it. I have been incredibly privileged, and I don't share this to boast, but I got to work with some surf coaches in the Maldives, and they would keep me on the boat before they'd let everybody else jump out, but they were working with me. I received a gift from somebody to do this. Very generous business associate gave my wife and I a thank you gift and sent us here. And anyways, the coaches, 2 of them kept me on the boat for 20 minutes after everyone was out getting waves, and they just made me study so that I understood how deep the water was, which direction the swell's coming in, where I need to be anchoring my view. Because if I get out of about a 20-foot by 20-foot zone, I could be in danger. I could actually get drifted away, or I'll find myself in a shallow razor coral, or I won't be getting waves. So there's all these different dynamics that are taking place, and the best of the best, they keep their eyes focused on coordinates. They're always paddling and adjusting so they stay in the zone, because the current or the drift will just slowly move you a mile down the beach or out to sea. It happens all the time. And I've got plenty of stories where people have been sucked out, and I've been one who's had to paddle way out and then help bring them in as they've been stuck in the current. It's where I've become closest to death, is in those situations.
You say drift happens for leaders. I've heard you say when they're unaware, overwhelmed, distracted, and deceived. Those are common drift points. What do all those things have in common? What's the one common denominator of all those things in the life of a leader?
You lose perspective and sight of what matters most.
Good. So good. I'm telling you, man, you and I are in that season of life. We talked about it's a rich season. Our kids are grown. It's a great season. Do you find leaders even that have done well, if they take their eye off and they don't paddle accordingly, they don't watch? Have you even seen leaders like that begin to drift and totally get caught off guard, thinking they had it all in control?
That's me.
Mm.
I've been there. I'm not, I can write a book about it and I can coach lots of people through it, but that doesn't mean that I don't have it figured out. I get stuck. I totally get stuck. It happens. I've got some very specific chapters in my life to where all of a sudden I'm like, uh-oh, I'm off target. What's happening?
How do you begin to see it? How do you notice it in somebody else? Is totally different than noticing in yourself. How do you begin? What are the buttons and the flashers that are going off in your life when that's begun to happen?
So my first, when you were asking, my first memory of getting off point and drifting has to do when I wrote that book. So I've written another one since then, and I dealt with the 7 perspectives much different than I dealt with Living Forward. So when I wrote Living Forward with my friend Michael Hyatt, Michael's just a social media machine. He markets and has figured out how to influence through the digital world and social world like a beast. And it's part of his business model. It's not part of my business model. I don't spend a lot of time there. And it's because I don't have the time, or it's because I've not said it's priority. Okay. Well, when we wrote the book, I broke some of my own rules to engage in that game. And, in my house, no one brings a phone out at a dinner table. With all the extra kids that we've had and with our family, and my wife and some of my kids are amazing cooks. You would never want to insult any of them by being distracted at one of the most meaningful moments in the day, which is when a family comes together and they talk. But if you grab the phone, what you're saying is there's somebody here that's more important to me than all of you. Well, when the book Living Forward was released in 2016, the social media push was huge. And I was receiving text messages from the team saying, get in the game, get in the game. We've only got a week. We're going for bestseller, blah, blah, blah. And we had a lot of well-meaning people, and we're on all different time zones. No one's thinking Daniel's at dinner. It's not malicious or bad. I'm responsible for that. And I had the phone down to the side, and Mike, I'm not kidding. I've shared this story. Somebody posted a picture of a dog wearing glasses, and the dog wearing the glasses was sitting in front of the book Living Forward. And the caption that some wonderful friend out there, whomever it was, who I don't have any idea, they said, oh, even the book's so good, even my dog's enjoying it and building her life plan. And I'm commenting on that. And my son, who today is 31, he looks at me and he's like, dude, what are you doing? And then he squared up with me a little later. And he's like, yeah, you've been gone. You're sitting here worried about Amazon ratings and you're on that. And I just told you that we're having at that time, I'm getting engaged and I got the ring and all that. And you were absent. Now, this guy's one of my best friends and, all my kids. But yeah, I got stuck and I just repented. I was like, team, family, whoa. Sorry. Mike, there's 3 arrows that the enemy shoots at all of us, as told in 1 John 2, 15, 16. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the boastful pride of life are not of the Father, but they're of the world. So lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and the boastful pride of life. I could preach a sermon on those and how I've been hit and how I've had to extract and how I warn. So.
And I love your transparency in that, because that's reality. and the
It's
world that
real.
we live in, it is what it is. And that's one of my favorite parts about pastoring the same church now 27 years is they've seen that. Listen, there ain't nothing to hide, man. I got
Yeah.
college roommates in there, I've got old high school friends in there, but there is nothing to hide. But you laid out in Living Forward, and you and Michael did such a great job.
Thanks.
And what I love about it's the whole plan is on your website
Yeah.
that people can download, and they can
Yeah, take it.
walk through the plan on how to do it. You named your son because you talk in there about beginning with your funeral,
Yeah.
beginning with the end in mind, numbering your days, and working backwards. And you talk about the importance of the accounts
Mhm.
and why those deposits into those accounts are so big. When you laid it out, did you ever dream that the one you were pouring into would one day pour into you? Your 31-year-old son would come back and go, Dad, and really maybe have kept your life on course because of that conversation. What's been the benefit
Mm.
of making those accounts priority in your life for where you sit today?
Everything. I mean, it's everything. I've been one who has firmly believed, as do you, just because of the earlier conversation we had, the greatest ministry I will ever have is my marriage. And then right behind that is my family. I mean, this is where it's real. This is where it is real. This is the good and the bad. This is, waking up sick or being stressed out or being afraid or, this isn't game time. This is lifetime. It's everything. So the 9 basic accounts we put in Living Forward, we modified for Set Path because we wrote that for younger adults. But something that's really important to me in all of it is we just get you in that process to ask, who do you want to be first and foremost? And then what are you going to do? The world gets it confused. What are you going to do? And then how's that going to impact who you are? And I say, reverse engineer, figure out who you've been called to be. You're an image bearer of the King. I mean, you can be amazing in so many different areas because you have a helper. And the accounts in your life, you play a unique stewardship role. And I can't hire anybody to be her husband. There's no replacement for me as their dad. Yes, they can have somebody else come in if the Lord takes me home, but that person's going to be a different one. Won't be the one, right? No one else. I can't hire somebody to do my faith walk for me. I am the steward of how I show up and what I receive. I am the steward of how I care for the temple. Nobody else gets to do that. That is me. I am the only one that plays the stewardship role over this temple. What goes into it, how it works, what comes out of it, mouth, actions, all of it. I play a unique role. So who do I want to be in all those areas? And now how do I act out on that? So yeah, those accounts, they're everything. And did I ever imagine that some of those humans in those accounts would be who they are to me? Yeah, I think I did. I think I did. I think when I look at my life plans, it's interesting. I didn't know we were going to go on the life plan journey. I haven't talked about that book on a podcast in a while. But there is the 2023, which is about ready to get this month updated for the 2024. And I just was going through it a week ago. I walked a few hundred leaders through the process out in Central Oregon. And I went through it. I'm like, oh, yeah, these things, I got a few changes to make. I've got some changes to make. And I sure love looking at these from 25 years ago. I keep every one of them. And to see who I wanted to be before I had my youngest daughter.
Yeah.
And then to see who I wanted to be with her 20 years ago. And now she's getting married. And I'm like, wow, answered prayers here and so much goodness here. And ooh, I may have missed there, but look at who she's turned out to be. Thank you. It's a great way to go. It's not a magic It's not a magic genie, but sure does help you to focus in on what matters most so you avoid the drift and then the destination of regret.
That's right. Well, you're living so much more by design than default.
Yeah.
You are helping to coordinate. And we don't dream when we began the journey. We don't dream that one day we're going to have adult conversations with our kids and the blessings that they will be. I know my son had a pull aside with me last year. He's 30, he's turning 30. And my Twitter had gotten hacked, and boy, I was all bent out of shape, and they zeroed me out. They started me over. And I've been on Twitter since 2014, and I was losing my mind. And one day he just pulls me aside and said, "You need to let it go. I mean, you're way more concerned about it than anybody else."
Yeah.
But you know what, though? He's exactly right. And those accounts start reaping dividends. So let's say there's a 55-year-old leader who has done it all wrong. I mean, they haven't done anything right, but they hear this. They're driving, they're flying somewhere, they're in the middle of their coaching career. We got a lot of coaches that listen to this. Is it ever too late to start doing this? Is it ever too late to begin this plan? Talk to that a little bit.
No. My hope is that nobody's buying the lie that they've done everything wrong. Oftentimes the memories of the mistakes, they just get magnified versus the moments of goodness, right? And we can tend to hyper focus on those. I apologize. I have a printer going off over here. Somebody's
you're
printing
totally
somebody.
fine.
So, okay. So, what I would tell them is let's turn it off. I would tell them it's never too late. It's never too late. The first place that you want to travel to is the place of forgiveness. And you start with yourself, and then you start to look at, are there other humans that need to receive that? And once you ask for that, you can't control the response, but you can control your courage, your humility, and your desire to have a different tomorrow. Now, once you've done that, you cannot control how the other humans will journey with you in the future. You can't. But you can control how you will show up, the decisions that you will make, which then could lead to an level of influence that could lead to a better destination. And that is the way that you need to look at it. And along the way, if it's been a struggle, don't be afraid to ask for real help. There's some individuals that might be listening that maybe they really are underwater and everything has been at age 55 a train wreck, and they may need some real help. They just need to get their nose above the water. And then there are others who are like, "Oh no, I'm breathing, I'm okay. I want to be a better version of me." And you can have somebody come alongside you and help you, and there's a lot of value in that.
You spend your life coaching and mentoring others, leading your great company, leading the folks that lead alongside you at Building Champions. You've created this amazing resource with your team of Set Path. Who helps you? Who comes along your side and becomes that other head on your shoulder to help navigate life?
Yeah. So those individuals have traded out over the years. I've had different ones that have journeyed with me to help me in areas where I needed to be strengthened or I needed to see things differently. Today, I'm very fortunate. I have a board of advisors that happen to be on my team. So if you were to look at the Building Champions website, you would see there are coaches and there are CEO mentors. And the CEO mentors, for the most part, well, actually, no, for the most part, there's one that might be my age. I think he's my age, but the majority of them are 10 to 20 years older than me. So I have a business partner that's 82 that is fired up and always wanting to help me. He just texted me last week saying, "I want you to send me your thoughts every week so that we can discuss them. What are you thinking about?" He's a guy who went through that exercise of looking at the timelines and the themes, and he was in the room, and I was honoring him because he's a guy who always leaves conversations with me. "Daniel, the best is yet to come." The
Mm,
best is yet to come. Now you think about a kingdom mindset, of course the best is yet to come. But that board of advisors are right now, they're a team of men, and they're the most consistent ones that will pour in, augment, help me in my thinking. So I've got them who are playing in one end, and then I've got this other crew of guys that are just an absolute blessing, and they know me. You know, just like you were talking about your church, you got your college friends and all them that are hanging out in your congregation. Well, this painting right over here, Mike, over my shoulder, that
Yep.
says, can you see that?
Yep. Hooligan.
Hooligan. So my hooligans, so all my boys there, their nicknames are all in there. One of them's an artist. This is my whole surfing posse from when we were young teenagers. And I can show you pictures of 3 weeks ago when we were together just last.
Mm.
But these guys, they don't buy any of the magic. They know me. They know boy Danny. They know. They know. So they'll step on inside alongside. And then I've got kids, and I have a wife she's courageous and she's caring. So, but my board of advisors are those that will play that more of that role. As you know, my last book is The 7 Perspectives of Effective Leaders, and the 7th perspective is the perspective of the outsider. Who's that outsider that has the ability to look in and help you to see what you don't see, and help you to leverage the opportunities and avoid the pitfalls. And I've got a good crew of outsiders.
You've had an amazing career from your early days in the mortgage business to taking your sabbatical to beginning your coaching business, really on a whim, on what you felt like God was leading you to do, and now it's grown. What do you see as you and I both have in common? We're, the fourth quarter is on the board and the clock is ticking. We understand that, and we know that there's a brevity to all this. What do you pray is the biggest impact you make in this next season of life? It's a question I don't really know how to answer. I look at my impact, and then I immediately go to my prayer in the morning, and I have the same prayer that I've been praying it for decades now, and it's the same every day. But it has to do with, Lord, help me to be who you want me to be so that I can do what you want me to do. May I see people like you see them. May I love them like you love them. And may I serve them in ways that bring you fame and glory. May I strive to please an audience of one. And would you use me to flip the switches up on the hearts of everybody that I meet? Always directing to you, not to me, always to you, right? So that's the middle section of my prayer. And when I think about getting, and no disrespect at all, right? But thinking about wanting to do something big, like if I were to show you my timeline and what I see for the decade ahead, like I just don't want to F it up. I don't want to get in his way, and I need to stay close. He's put me in a unique place where I do have a platform, and he has given me an audience that is divided. So I have an audience where young adults, for some reason, they will want to hang out, and it can be guys and gals that are teens into 20s, and I enjoy helping them to see who they can be, and I want to continue to advocate for them being who they've been called and designed to be. I want to be that encourager. I don't want to get in the way of that. And then the other spectrum are these leaders that for some reason I have a unique passport to journey with, and they're 10 times smarter than I am, and they've just got way more horsepower than I do, but for some reason they want to talk, and I can help them. So I want to continue to advocate for them. And I see over your right shoulder champions, my company name, Building Champions. To unpack that, that plaque probably has to do with somebody who won some sort of a game or a tournament. And it's probably baseball by the looks of it. They won. They were winners. Well, building champions may mean winners, but to champion is a verb, and it's to advocate, and it's to be an ambassador for a better cause.
And I'm building those champions. I am trying to build those leaders that are trying to champion a cause to where they create a culture that improves humanity, so that when people come to work there, when people do business with those there, they leave as better humans. And for some reason, there's a really neat connection with those type of leaders. So in the quarter of life ahead, professionally, ministerially, missionally, I want to do that. But nowhere do I want to do that more so than with my wife, my kids, and my grandbabies. So there you go.